Hey, I'm so glad that you're able to join us for day 8 of our 14 days of prayer. Today's devotional is entitled Grit, Passion and Perseverance. In 2011, a wonderful couple that I know got married, and it was their earnest prayer that God would bless them with a child. And so they prayed and waited, and they prayed and waited, yet their blessing did not come. And even though their marriage flourished and God showed up in so many wonderful ways in their lives, it was challenging that this petition that they had put before the Lord had not been answered. You know what they did do? Year after year, they remained on their knees and desperately cried unto the Lord, just like Hannah did. This right here to me is a demonstration of grit. In the best-selling book called Grit by Angela Duckworth, she defines grit as a combination of passion and perseverance for long-term goals. And so she says that gritty individuals are those who stay committed to their goals and work hard to overcome their challenges. And so she even highlights that success in anything, whether it be in sports and careers and running a business, is not necessarily just down to talent, but grit. See, far too often, we think grit and perseverance is only necessary in some areas of our lives, whether it be learning or our careers. And so we don't necessarily think we need to be gritty when it comes to to spiritual things, particularly when it comes to our prayer lives. But Angela Duckworth explains that grit is about having stamina. And so if grit is about having stamina, then we need to pray with stamina. She says grit is like sticking with your future day in and day out, not just for the week, not just for the month, but for years, and working really hard to making the future become a reality. And so if that's the case, then we need to learn to stick with God. And if, just as she says, grit is living life as if it's a marathon and not a sprint, then we must not remain satisfied with short-sighted goals. And if grit is about determination to push forward, even when we face obstacles that seem insurmountable, then we must learn to persevere in prayer. And so even when it seems like God has not answered our prayers, we must persevere. Now, I don't know, but maybe like my friends, you may have put a petition before the Lord, and that petition has either not been answered in the time that you expected it to be, or in your eyes, and far worse, you felt like God has just been silent. And so you've become discouraged. You've given up in your heart, or you've even doubted that God can act in ways beyond your comprehension. If that's your thinking today, then I want to assure you that the Bible has many promises that you can hold firmly to today. Galatians chapter 6 verse 9 says, "And let us not grow weary of doing good, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up." And in Mark chapter 11 verse 22 and 24, the Bible says, "Have faith in God. Whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours." See, I need you to know that while Jesus says that we should ask, he does not say that we should ask once, but rather he's calling us to persevere in prayer and be persistent when we ask. And so I believe that we must ask in faith, we must wait in faith, we must receive in faith, and rejoice in hope always. In Luke chapter 18 verse 1, Jesus told his disciples that they should always pray and not give up. He then tells them about a widow who repeatedly goes to a judge to make her case. And so even though the judge doesn't necessarily care about her or care about God, he gives in to her request because of her persistence. And so then Jesus says, if this evil judge is moved by persistence, how much more so is God? My hope for you and I is that we will learn to be gritty and persistent in our prayer life. Now, I mean, to have grit means our prayers will be grounded in faith, that we will be resilient in our requests, that we will be intentional when interceding on others' behalf, and we will be tenacious in thanksgiving, even when we're waiting. As the songwriter says, He knows my name. I want you to know that God knows your name. He knows your every thought. He sees each tear that falls, and He hears you when you call. You see, after almost 10 years of persistently remaining on their knees, God blessed my wonderful friends with a beautiful baby, my now 4-year-old goddaughter. I want you to know that in His time, He makes all things perfect. I don't know what it is that you have put before the Lord. I want to encourage you to be persistent in asking and know that in God's perfect time, He will grant your request. Why? Because God is fiercely faithful.